Welcome to another session of Open House Q&A, and we're going to stick strictly on questions and answer. So if you have a question, drop it in the comment box, and as the questions are coming in, we are going to just provide a direct answer to them. Now, the first question is, at what point do you escalate as a servant leader? At what point would you say this is not working again? All right, that's a very tricky question, and it's also going to depend on the situation. But the first point you should escalate is as a servant leader. I'm taking a reference to working as a Scrum Master, is when there is an impediment that is beyond your capacity. This can be a blockage, which means that one of your developer is working on a story, and that story is blocked because they need some deployment from the DevOps team. Now you can, and they cannot progress with that, which means that they're definitely not going to finish that before the end of the sprint. You escalate that to your manager. Okay, you can have also a team member that is having issues. They're constantly reporting during the daily stand-up, or I started working yesterday, my laptop's crashed and I could not do so much. And you kind of say, okay, I'm going to fix that. The next day, they kind of report that. And if you follow up with them, and it's constantly the same thing that they're reporting, you can escalate that as well, because that is also a technical issue that's impacting a whole lot of work. When it's more like something you can resolve just by having a conversation or by facilitating, you don't need to escalate that, right? An impediment could also be that one of your Scrum Master, no, not Scrum Master, one of your developer might be having issues using a new environment that have been created within the company to work. I'm just gonna give, for instance, in my team, there was an application that needed to be used called Sneak. And then most of the team members said, oh, this is the first time I'm having it. So I simply kind of just always team who has experience using Sneak. Someone said, oh, I can help you after this. I can help you after this. And that was it. So you can easily resolve this issue. But when it's beyond your technical capacity, escalate, especially when it comes to stories that are blocked for one reason or the other, that are going to impact the goal of your sprint. All right. The second question, what is the Scrum Master responsibility after the PI planning? So this is a question about SAFe. Now the PI planning is a 2 days event, right? And the team plan based on the cycle of your PI. The cycle of most PI is between 8 and 12 weeks, right? Let's say that my PI cycle is 10 weeks. What am I going to do after all the planning is completed within the 2 days of PI planning? I'm going to go back to my team and we're going to launch our first iteration, which is 2 weeks, right? I'm going to implement my normal iteration event, planning, the daily stand-up, review, retrospective, and as a Scrum Master, also I'll be tracking dependency. If you work in a safe environment, one thing you track all the time is dependency, because there are multiple teams working on the same product. I'm also going to be looking out for the Scrum of Scrum events that are coming in from the release frame engineer. I'm also going to be looking out for pre-iteration goals for companies that have pre-iteration goals. And pre-iteration goals definitely come in like before every sprint. All the product managers or all the product owners kind of meet together and give an update about their goals. I'm also going to be looking at all the team demos, where all the team come and demo what they're doing and kind of align it. So these are like the activities that will be taking place within that space of before the next PI. Another stuff I'll also be looking into, I will also be looking at the mid-PI planning. The mid-PI planning simply kind of give you an overview of what you've been working on and then help you to start looking towards the next PI planning. So these are some of the core activities you should be looking at after your PI planning as a safe Scrum Master. Now, the next question says, how about quality? How do you build quality into deliverables? Okay, building qualities into deliverables is the job of the developers, right? And what you do as a Scrum Master is to enhance the building quality. And how do you enhance building quality? The first thing is that you are creating a conducive environment for your team to operate, which means that you are working with them to make sure that they understand the work that needs to be done. They are not taking more than they need to take so that they will not rush over the work just to catch up with time. And you are helping working with them during either iteration planning or sprint planning to make sure that the story are kind of really sized down to kind of maybe 3 or 2 story points so that they are not taking so much time on each story. It's not too cumbersome, and they can easily have reviews and have other people, other team member review and give them validation. So if you do that, you're going to build inequality in your delivery. And one of the most important points that can help your team build inequality in your delivery is the happiness index. If your team is happy, they're going to do the work well. Today, I had like one of my team members that came in and like, oh, we were texting back to back yesterday evening just to get a quick done. I was like, why do you have to work in the evening? Oh, wow, we love the work. We're committed, right? So if your team members are happy, they should be able to already kind of step up and do the work, and it's going to also build in quality. And also, one of the ways to measure if your team members are happy, when something comes up and they're looking for, oh, we can take up this, you easily see people own up like, oh, I can do that, oh, I can do that, no problem. So those are some of the ways you also evaluate the performance of your team. When your team is performance, definitely you are going to have built-in quality. What is the difference between automated testing and manual testing? Automated testing, it's built in, it's kind of really implemented in the safe environment where we have the DevOps. Automated simply means that immediately you release the deployment, immediately you complete your story, you release, you're not the one releasing, your developers are the one releasing. So it's been released. The system is going to automatically validate and run the test to see if you pass all the different tests that have been put in place. Manual simply means that, okay, you need to maybe send to the QA, the QA is going to go through manually and check and see if everything is okay, or if it needs to go through a tester. Most of the cases, the product owner is the one doing the validation because they accept the story, right? They manually check to see everything is right and they move it to done. All right, the next question says, during PI planning circle, during the Scrum team meeting, as entire other team to demo product or just, all right, yes. Do we have Scrum or Scrum yet? Demoing a product, it's an intake after every iteration. After every iteration, all the teams in the Agile team meet for an organization demo. All the team, they meet and they demo. All the different teams are kind of demonstrating what was the increment. So you working in one team, you can be able to see what the other teammates is done. You can be able to look at how that's going to affect your own work on your own side. Yes, they meet for that. They also meet for Scrum or Scrum. And you're also interacting with other team members you have dependency with. So there's a lot of cross-functional meeting. That's why we call Scrum a cross-functional environment. Okay, what are the matrices used in Kanban? All right, the first thing you want to understand is what is Kanban, right? Kanban, in most of the cases, might take different variety of ways. The concept simply means that we want to make the process visible for everybody, which means that we can have a Kanban board just to make sure we're tracking what is going on. Let's say we can have you might be working at in a Scrum team, and your role is to be able to track maybe all the new developers that have been employed in your team. So we put a Kanban board just to see when they come in, when their onboarding is going on, when they start and they move to done. if they're building a story, let's say they're building an application, which is a web app, and they're using a Kanban, the Kanban means we can take in as much work as we can take, so long as we are taking it, we are moving it to completion. Now, the Kanban board can also have settings that can limit the number of work in progress. It might just leave it like a flow, right? So, and just create visibility. Now, what are the matrices? It depends on what the team is putting in place to evaluate. It depends also on the product, right? Since they probably might not be building in sectors, you might not have like what you have the short circles of bend down, bend up, and other stuff. We might have a long-term chart that shows the progress and how they are building up. But since you're kind of not really comparing it to something else, it might be a bit difficult to really give an evaluation. But the matrices for me would be to look at also the validations of the stories when they get into a place where they need to be accepted. And when they accept, are they pulling it back or not? So I'm going to look at the technical depth as one of the matrices. Is the technical depth growing, or do we have the technical depth kind of really low in place? Right, I'm going to look at that. I'm also going to look at the numbers of stories that are being completed, maybe within a week, or maybe within 2 weeks, or maybe within a month, depending on the period we are using to do our evaluations. So these are some of the common stuff that you need to put. Okay, if you were to answer this question in an interview, it's a very big question, right? And this is where you need to use interview question to work in your advantage. You can say, what are the matrices used in Kanban? You can say, okay, I'm aware of the Kanban, but although I've not worked in a Kanban team before, but if we want to talk about the matrices used in Kanban, let's say that my team is pulling out work and we're having our evaluation at the end of every 1 month, then we can use the end of the month report. We can be able to use maybe the number of stories completed. It's going to be based on the working agreement of the team. Okay. The next question says, how do you manage time with your team? By facilitating. That's the best way you manage time, facilitate. If one person is dominating, try to look at how you regulate it. Managing time is by, first of all, having an agenda. For every meeting you go to, have an agenda. If you have an agenda and know the number of people that are coming in, you can time box how long they'll be talking. Now, let's say I facilitate the demo meeting across my organization. Now, each team member has 10 minutes to demo, right? I cannot send in the demo order before the day of the demo. There are 8 different teams, and each team knows that I'm having 10 minutes to demo. So if you're going beyond 10 minutes, I can easily step in. Can you quickly summarize the working on the time box, right? But if, let's say, the first person did not really use so much time, and we still have quite some time, I might be a bit flexible. So I just want to make sure that I have an agenda. I have everyone plan the agenda. I have them see the agenda before time. That is going to help me manage time box because they are aware of the time. Okay, the next question say, I made an example of making myself present in the story. Okay, that is good. Making yourself present in the story. Let's say that the previous question we just asked, how do you manage time box? I want to be present in that story. I'm going to tell the recruiter, thank you very much for that question. When I run my my daily stand-up, one of the things I do is that before I start up my meeting, I'm going to remind my team that we only have 15 minutes. And if we can keep all our answers just straight to update, if there's any other issues we need to discuss, we can take them to the parking lot and discuss later. So just creating that awareness helped me to manage the time box. Now, when I'm facilitating my reviews, what I normally do is that I send out my review calendar who is reviewing the day before the review, and in the day and the day where they're presenting, I just make sure that each of my team members is actually respecting the time. So setting the agenda and making everyone aware that we're working on time is a way I manage my time box. Now you put yourself in, right? You're not just explaining. So you're putting yourself in the progress. Hope that's clear. And that's one thing everyone should do. When you ask a question, when you are explaining, you're taking yourself out of the box. I could still explain that question of, okay, how I manage time box. I ensure that every meeting is 5 minutes. I ensure that when during the planning, I try to make sure that we don't go over time and other stuff. Now you're explaining to me what you will do, but now putting yourself in it is just like tweaking your tongue. You say, okay, what I normally do during my planning, I do this, I do this, I do this, right? It's now like the action. You're putting yourself in the action rather than saying what you will do. Now, when you say what you will do, you kind of put yourself on the observation part of it. Okay, it's a bit more stronger when you put yourself in action when you speak. Okay, can you explain the plan, do, check, adjust, settle in a simple way? All right, plan, do, check, adjust in a simple way. What it simply means is that the way sprint or iteration are being set, right? They're making sure that we are able to do all the plan, do, check. Plan, do, check is just a system that helps us to have an overview over what we're doing. The sprint planning, that's the plan, right? When you're actually implementing, what are you doing? You're implementing. Checking, during daily stand-up review and retrospective. So the plan, do, check, adjust now is the entire system. The way Scrum is structured in a way that we're able to plan the work, we're able to do the work, we're able to check what we're doing, we're able to readjust. So that's the simplest way I can explain that one. I don't know if I can go further than that, but it's just like the way the events have been structured and how you can be able to monitor that. Right. All right. How do you manage the product releases, the product you release to the customer? In most of the case, a Scrum Master is not the one that should manage the product releases, except you are a technical Scrum Master that understands technically if it is ready for release or not. Now, what you do is that you participate in the process. The PO, your product owner, and the product management are the people that really take control over the releases because you're releasing to the client, right? Now, if you're the one managing releases, it means you should be also communicating with the client to ensure that everything is intact. And as a Scrum Master, one of the anti-pattern is when you get too technical. When you get too technical, what is happening? You're focusing in implementing the technical role rather than focusing in having an oversight over the process and advising what is going on or what's going on. So your role in release is just to attend the meetings and understand when is the next release and understand if your team is building towards that release. How far are they going towards the release? So you use the knowledge about the different date of the release to help coach your team. Yeah, but you're definitely not the one implementing, you're just participating. And also, I have a couple of release meetings. I'll just put them, put very keen attention on the group. The next week, I have a couple of release meetings. I'm going to just have you guys come over and see what is going on within the release and see what am I saying or what is my role there. You can get to really picture that more. But you're definitely not the one in charge of releases. And another stuff which you also will be participating in as a Scrum Master, but you're not in charge is more what we also call customer support meeting. Because when we release and customer have any questions, now we're going to have a stakeholder support meeting. And if your organization is working with like different stakeholder or different maybe customer, they might have a support meeting for Nike, support meeting for Uber, they might have those support meeting. And normally the support meetings should be assigned to the product manager, all right? Because the product manager has a very high level view and the business value view, right? The product manager attends those meetings, and if there's anything that needs to be fixed, he assigns it to your team. But you should be there just to understand what is going on. You might not really understand all the techie stuff that is going on there, but you can follow on the business value. Okay, how do you manage the product release? Okay, we answered that question. How do you use matrices for your team, and how do you use matrices for reporting? All right, what are matrices? When we talk about matrices, it's just more on how do you measure that your team is growing, right? So let the word metrics or matrices not confuse you. And most often we have treated matrices as if they only bend down, bend up, and velocity, right? A metric can just be you observing something that helps you to learn if there is a change or not. So when you hear the word like metric, it's not really something data or something. It's just like, okay, a tool, and you can still measure just by observation. It's even by far the most powerful way of measurement, because your team can be completing all the stories, and the bend down chart is bending down very fast, and the bend up chart is bending up very fast, and the velocity is intact. But then you're having a lot of rework that they need to do. So the story go out, they send them back to the team, there are a lot of fixes, and you think, oh, my team is doing great, but the due in quality is very low. So the first level which you're going to start evaluating matrices is from the way the team communicate. Are they waiting to come to the daily stand-up to start pouring all the challenges and all of that? Those are already the way you start measuring how your team is going to measuring your team performance as well. And also, but if you want to go more on reporting, one of the stuff you might not really do, different environment. I have people that are working in a Scrum environment, and they need to write weekly report on what they're doing and what project they're working on. But a Scrum Master should definitely not be writing report. Why? Because the bend down chart, the bend up chart, the spring report, and all of that, they generated automatically. And you, the Scrum Master, you need to pull out that data to understand how you can read them to advise your team, right? Other than putting time to write a report. But there are a couple of reports you can chat them on conference, like retrospective. What are some of the action points that your team need to take? You can go on conference and put it there and tag all your team members so that they can see what action step you need to take, and they can see who is responsible for that action step. All right, so that was the last question, I guess. Do we have any open questions? 5 more minutes and we're done for today. Okay, let's do a bonus question. How will you respond to tell me about yourself as a Scrum Master? What should you put in? What should you leave out? And what is the best way to approach it? All right, that's a bonus question for you. Okay, the first thing, the first mistake, a very big mistake I've seen a lot of Scrum Masters do, is to present themselves as just Scrum Masters. Like, oh, I'm a Scrum Master for 4 years. I've done Scrum on this, I've done Scrum on this, I've done Scrum on this, I've done Scrum on this. Now, when you present yourself just like a Scrum Master, you sell yourself short of value. Why? The first point is that Scrum is definitely really not something, a subject you studied in school and other stuff that you can claim like, oh, I'm an expert Scrum Master. Scrum is a leadership. And for you to be an outstanding leader, they look at your track record. So if you're actually making a mistake of taking out everything you have done out of your resume and putting only Scrum, you're putting yourself on a negative stuff. Sometimes it kind of go through and you get interviews now. This is the reason why it goes through and you get interviewed now. There's a very huge demand on Scrum Masters, and there are very few that are qualified. So they're looking for almost everything. But when it gets to a point, let's say the next 10 decades, where everyone has had enough time to readjust, that's going to be more like a no, no, no go zone. So the best way, I always give advice on 3 points that you should be talking about, which also goes in your resume. The first, you want to talk about your overall experience. Hello, my name is Francis, and I have about 15 years plus work experience cutting across program development, human business development, and the IT. You always have to add IT because you're the Scrum Master, right? So you work in an IT environment. And then the second point you want to capture now is when now you capture your transition. Prior to becoming a Scrum Master, I was working at XYZ and I was leading a team. Now, this is a big catch for you because your goal is to serve value. So what happened that you automatically switch from what you were doing to a Scrum Master? Now, there are a couple of tricks on transition you can put here. Maybe you were working with a team and your company introduced Agile and they automatically made you a leading Scrum Master. You got interested, got certified, and then move on. Or maybe you were leading a team and you're looking for ways to manage your team and you came across the Scrum framework and you found out that, oh, the daily standard was a good way to collect information in a very fast mode. And then that was your entrance in Scrum. Maybe you were in a team and maybe you had you were working in a Scrum team and you started having your Scrum Master facilitate. And when your Scrum Master was in there, you step in and fill the gap. And that's how you get your entrance in Scrum. But it needs to be a transition story, right? So tell me about yourself. The first thing I said, you look at the overall value in terms of the number of years of experience and the background you're bringing in. The second thing you want to talk about is about your transition story. And then the last thing you want to talk about is about why you're interested in the position. Not about, don't talk about, oh, I'm a servant leader, I communicate well. No. When you do that, you're not a leader. What does a servant leader do again? The servant leader don't say, oh, I'm a leader. So when you start talking about, I'm a good communicator, I can solve problems very well, what are you doing? You're no longer a servant leader. You're trying to prove your work. So your work should be proven when they are having a conversation with you. And which is one of the reasons why your most powerful strength is for you to have a conversation with the interviewer, not to do question and answer like we are doing now. All right, so it's to just talk with them. Try to be as non-technical as much as possible. Right? Try to bring them in a non-technical environment. I'm just going to give you an example of a question that I was asked in one of my interviews. And they asked me, it was an agile coaching, like, what is your style of coaching? Like, what's your style of coaching? Okay, style of coaching. If I want to look at style of coaching, it's a bit technical. I just like, oh, wow, that's a very important question, style of coaching. Let me see, what's my style of coaching? So I actually make joke of the question. Why? Because I could not really figure out when she means style of coaching, what exactly does she mean by what's your style of coaching? I said, whoa, I just kind of play a relaxed environment. I do a win-win between theory and practical. That's what we need to do, right? And I said, okay, just imagine you're teaching your a 2-year-old how to ride a bike. You will not really go as if you're teaching an elder person on how to drive a car. So what happened? You're going to be patient with them. You're going to help them know it's okay. You're going to play some fun with them and I just go, right? So I took that into a very normal situation and we have a discussion about it. I said, oh yeah, that's true. I think playing a balance is good. And another one was, there was one that was coming into my mind and I forgot. Okay, they asked another question like, what has been a time where you actually took a decision that as a Scrum Master at the end of the day, it wasn't a good decision? Okay, some cases you'll be pushing to look at how you can answer that question as a Scrum Master, but you don't have to. So what I did is I told them, okay, as a Scrum Master, I can't really remember, but I can take you back into 2012 when I was working on this project and this happened. So I took them to an environment where I'm familiar with. And because it was my environment, they cannot really see the fault. But if I have to talk about that same scenario in the Scrum, and maybe I start explaining how the developer did not submit their story point on time, and they can easily pick out if that's a rare case or not, because that's their environment. So sometimes just take them to, and that's why you don't have to only say you've been a Scrum Master. That's the advantage of still keeping your background, because you can pick them from there and you can be able to take them to somewhere that they're not familiar. And what are you doing? At that point, you become the teacher because you're teaching them what is happening in that environment. So that was it for today. So we're going to see if we can have one again before the end of the week, maybe Friday or so, but I'm going to see what my schedule looks like. Definitely quite a lot of people. I should be having meetings with them this week, and also looking at how I can support them. All right, so hope this was helpful. I'm going to put it up the next 2 hours. You should have it available for everyone to go through, and do make sure that this is not the only material you're studying. Now, as I said, this should be more like a plus for you. Your strength is to identify where you need, where you kind of lack it. You kind of understand, like, for those who have been having sessions with me this day, the first thing I ask you is that walk me through all the Scrum events. If you're not walking me through those events, you need to go back and do that assignment. Why? That's the baseline. That's where you can have an excuse that I don't know how to do it. Right? Immediately you master that, any other stuff is going to be easier for you, because any other point is going to reference on you understanding your role as a Scrum Master. We just answer one of the questions here on what's the role of Scrum Master in release training. So if you, was it release training? No, yeah, in release, what was that question again? Okay, how do you manage release as a Scrum Master? Now, if you don't understand that a release is not one of the events, or it's not one of the key role in the guide, you probably would want to put yourself up, oh, this is something I should be doing, I'm not doing. And then you're going to answer the wrong way, which is why go through, write your protocol as if you're writing it to someone that have never done Scrum, as if you're teaching them. If you master that, trust me, and with what we are doing, and we have a session today at 6, and we're going to be going through Miro. We're also going to be going through all the different events, how you run them on the Jira board. Then you definitely not have any challenge with that. So make sure you're doing your own part of the job. Okay, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and see you later.
Thank you, Doc.